Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? Well, the answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. When I started using Anchor to do my podcast, it was so extremely easy that I haven't even bothered to look for another app to use. I love this app. It's the only one I deal with, the only one I even recommend, period. I recommend you get on there ASAP. If you want to start a podcast, this is definitely the place to go. It's easy. You can drive around and record. You can sit in your basement and record. You can do it anywhere. It's fantastic. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start, anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Adam Rich from the Really Rich Podcast, and I know it has been a minute since I put out, another podcast and all that, and I'm sorry for the delay of how often I'm putting these out, but there are so many other things that I have going on right now that I'm trying to be involved in. I'm trying to do so many different things at once on top of my job. I've been working a ton of overtime at my job. I'm trying to get things ready at my house for my wife's pregnant. We're going to have another kid in a few months. So there's just so many things in my life going on right now. And I don't want to just completely neglect the podcast. I know that there's people that want to hear it, and there's people that have been like, what's going on? Did he quit? And all this stuff. And listen, I assure you, even like my last episode, prioritize but never quit. I'm still in the process of doing that. And I just wanted to make sure that I at least filled you guys in with what's going on. I didn't want to just make a new episode and just, put it out and act like everything is, normal or whatever, because I am trying and I want to communicate with you guys, and I want to at least fill you in on what's going on, so that way you know why this is taking so long or why I'm so far behind on things. So I don't intend to keep it that way. Hopefully once the baby comes and everything is kind of settled down. Right now, the overtime as of yesterday at my job seems to be kind of slowing down a little bit, so hopefully that will provide me more time to be doing this. But there's so many things that I've been dabbling in lately that I want to fill you guys in, because maybe it can be helpful for you. Maybe you might want to look into some of these things too. Maybe you won't care at all. So we're going to see how that plays out. But one of the, I mentioned a while back that I think when the pandemic first hit, I started getting involved back into the sports card trading business. That when I was a kid, I used to love just buying and trading with my friends sports cards. I wasn't really big into, I never went to the shows or whatever, and I went to the shows and I would purchase things for my own sake, and I would trade amongst my friends and things. But I never really, when I was a kid, I never made it like a business type thing. Every now and again, I might make a few bucks off of a card or something like that, but it wasn't something that it wasn't like a lemonade stand for me. This wasn't some regular everyday thing. I used to dabble in a lot of stuff like that though. There was times where I remember my mom going to Sam's Club when I was a kid, and she would buy these bulk boxes of either different types of gum, because kids, it was so wild. When I was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, between sports cards, sour balls, I don't know if any of you guys know what I'm talking about there. Those they're like gum, but they're like a little ball that's super sour on the outside. I haven't seen these things in years. I'm sure they still make them. I'm sure little kids still love them. I know I did when I was a kid, but all the kids in my class liked them. So I would have my mom go and buy bulk stuff, like bulk boxes of gum, bags of these sour balls, even warheads. If you don't know what those are, these things were, I love these things. These things were super sour, hard candies. And what we would do, it was wild. Not only would I buy all these different types so I could sell them to kids, but we also had these little competitions in school where we would see who can last the longest without making a face. You would pop in one of these sour balls or these warheads that were super sour, and people would try to load up on these things and stare at each other across the table. It sounds wildly ridiculous at this point, but it was fun when I was a kid. And so we would take these things, we would stare at each other, and the first one, and you'd have to keep like popping these sour balls in until somebody cracked, until somebody made a face. And it would get you to the point where you eventually didn't make a face. Like, sour stuff didn't faze me for a long time. But I will say that period of my life, I used to get canker sores, not cold sores. They're kind of different. Canker sores in my mouth because the sour, it was like acid eating away at like my cheeks and my tongue and my gums and stuff. And I just, for a long time, I didn't, as a child, I didn't put that together for a while because I just liked doing that stuff so much. I was just like, oh, I wonder what's happening. So after a while, I realized, okay, the sour stuff is eating away at the inside of my mouth here. I better stop doing this. And then ever since then, every now and again you'll get one, but rarely do I get canker sores like that unless I eat a lot of sour stuff. So I know that none of that is absolutely relevant, but the reason why I'm telling you any of this is because lately, over these last, I would say ever since the pandemic started, I tried figuring out ways to, well, one, I've always been interested in learning. I've always been interested in trying to learn new things, why people think the way they do, what drives them, and origin stories has always mattered to me because origins usually tell you why things are going to play out a certain way. When you look back throughout history and you see all kinds of different origins for different things, you start seeing patterns and why things develop the way they do, why they get to a point that they do, and why they ultimately fall apart the way that they do. And so history has always fascinated me in that aspect because right now we see a lot of things going on in the world that people are, especially in America at least, people are at war with each other. People are divided. They're, I don't want to say war like physically in like a guns and missiles type sense, but I mean mentally at war with like friends and family when 5 to 10 years ago, this stuff never happened. And I think a lot of that is because of social media. They've made it so easy for you to just talk and get your viewpoints out, and whether people want to hear it or not. And then if people disagree with you, but it constantly arrives in their feed, it starts to slowly build and make them more and more angry towards you as a person, seeing the views that you actually have. When I was a kid, you never talked about politics or religion with people because you knew everyone stood in a little bit different place than you did. And so if you found some kind of, you're eventually always going to find something that you disagree on, because when it comes to religion and politics, almost nobody agrees 100%. And so it was just better to keep it to yourself, because if you wanted to keep your friends and family, if you wanted to be in a good mood around each other, if you wanted to have fun and laugh and play and all that stuff, you did not talk about things that you disagreed on, because then you would just want to argue with each other. And now social media has made it to a point where everyone just loves to shout their opinions out to the world, hoping to make, influence other people to feel the same way, or just to reach them, or just to communicate with them. It might not be to necessarily make you believe what I believe, but you like getting that information out because you want to talk about it with people, especially with like-minded people. The problem is I've never had a problem trying to share how I feel with people, and if they think I'm like, I have no problem with discussing it, I should say that way. Not debating, not arguing, not yelling at each other, but I have no issue discussing things with people. And we can disagree on all kinds of stuff, but that doesn't mean you have to hate each other. And so much of that is going on in the world right now. And the pandemic really kind of amplified this. We started getting people about this, like mask mandates. Do we shut down or do we not? Do we wear a mask or do we not? Do we shop at this place or do we not? Do we cancel Dr. Seuss or do we not? And it's all these things. It's like we're looking for reasons to be upset. And and my grandma used to have a great saying, and she still does, and she always used to say, all sunshine leads to a desert. And that is always, it sounds basic on face value, but it is incredibly true. When people in America have had their lives so good compared to people around the world that are actually suffering or struggling or having a hard time trying to get food on their table and stuff, Americans, a lot of them that are in a good place, look for that reason to complain. And it's not everybody. Like, I do it myself sometimes. I don't like complaining. I don't like being negative, but sometimes I just find myself doing it and I don't like it. I mean, you guys know, if you follow the podcast, I love the positivity. It is extremely helpful, but there is so much negativity in the world. You cannot help but hear it. It enters your head and it will alter your mood and how you feel. And it's like, it's really true what they say. It's energy is neither lost nor replaced. It's simply transferred from one party to the next. So if you get around a lot of negative people and all they're doing is complaining over and over and over, you're bound to let that sink into your head and start joining the party, start complaining also. And it's inevitable, so I try to limit the amount of negativity I hear, I listen to, I try to limit how much I put it in my life and, be around it. But sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you live in a household with negative family members. Sometimes you work at a job with negative employees. Sometimes you hang out with a group of friends that's all negative friends. You're going to school with a bunch of kids in class that hate the class. It's inevitable to be around negative people, but what you should always try to do is limit how much time you spend with them. But to get back to that, the reason why I was bringing all this up, I know it seems like it doesn't tie in at all, but it actually does. The idea that when the pandemic hit, it really started showing me a lot more about people, about how they act, and especially when there's a little bit of struggle or trauma or drama or any kind of negative situations. When people get to a fearful state, they get meaner and angrier. They get short-fused, if you will, even if you won't. And so it's wild, because you start seeing friendships and relationships start to fracture, because when people are stressed and don't know what to do, it takes leaders to get the ship going in the right direction. And when you have a bunch of people who are not leaders, who are just usually listening to the news or listening to their governor or their senator or their president or their congressman or their teachers or their whatever, if you got a bunch of people listening to others and those others are not good leaders, you're bound to create more panic and more fear and more anger and more short-fusedness, if you will. And I don't even know if that's a word. It probably isn't, but I think you get what I'm saying here. It gets you on edge. It gets you more irritated. And I hate seeing this happen with good people that you really care about, but it's almost like we break down from a society into tribalism. It's almost like we create this, like, all right, I'm going to take care of my little family, and we all got each other's backs, but anyone else can go F themselves, basically, is the mindset that people fall into. And it's not an intentional thing. It's not that people are just evil and they want to say screw you if you're not with me or whatever. It's just that when things get really serious, and we're all looking for answers, you resort to being on defense constantly because you just want to protect yourself and your family and the people you care about. And it makes sense. It's understandable. But what I've noticed is so many people are so quick these days to just cut people off and just want, because we want answers. We want everything to. A lot of people are stuck in a position where they want things to be like they used to be, but they're never going to be like they used to be. If you look throughout the history of time, nothing has ever gone back to how things used to be. Everything is always progressing. I mean, we're not literally starting fires with sticks and in a flint or any. We're not actively, and I know I'm screwing that up, but we're not actively trying to reinvent things. We're not. Everything progresses and we use it, and we need to just adapt and just say, okay, what is the situation now? It's one thing if you think you can control a situation, if you think that you can stop something from happening or you can make a big change, then that's a great thing. Then you should try. Absolutely, you should try. But you also have to be very self-aware of what's going on in your life and around the world. Is there things that you can change? And if there isn't, instead of getting angry about them and being on a short fuse and being irritated and all that stuff and ready to snap on anyone, what you should do is just take a step back, take a few minutes to yourself or a few hours, a few days, whatever it takes, and think to yourself, all right, the situation is this. Now, how do I learn this new game? How do I learn the rules of this new game? Because I want to be good. I want to play. I want to be a part of this. I don't want this game to destroy me. I don't want this to be game over. I want to learn the rules of the game, and I want to survive, and I want to be great at this new game. And that is extremely important every day of your life to live like that. And it's not easy to just wake up every day and be like, okay, I'm going to conquer this day. You need reminders. You need to think about it. You need to actively make it a goal of yours, a priority of yours, that you are going to defeat the day. The day will not defeat you. And I think so many people just look for, well, what kind of angle can I get? Or how can I just survive? Or how can I get, how can somebody help me get ahead? Or how can the government give me a stimulus check to help me pay my bills? Those are fine and everything, but you can't live like that. You can't live relying on other people to do things for you. And so during this pandemic, I started seeing all of how it was affecting people, how it was affecting jobs around the world. And I thought to myself, if something like this ever happens again, how can I be so prepared for it that it doesn't affect me at all? Because this was something that came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody really prepared for this, unless you're like one of those doomsday preppers or something. Maybe you were like, all right, I got this fully under control. But, I was not in that state. I'm raising I got a wife, I got a kid, we got a second one on the way, I got a full-time job, I'm doing this podcast, I'm trying to make things happen in my life and make changes for the better long-term, so I don't have to be stuck doing things that I don't want to be doing. I like doing the podcast, I like talking to you people, I like interacting on social media and stuff with you people. It's super fun for me, I enjoy it, and this is what I would like to make my life, but I had to think if this if what your job is, if whatever your career is something that will be devastatingly altered by a pandemic, what can you do right now and over the next week, next month, next year? What can you do to prepare for if this ever happens again? Because you have no idea if this is going to... I understand the rarity of it. It seems to be once every 100 years the world goes through some kind of a global pandemic of some kind. But what if it happened again next year? Because let's be honest, we're getting farther and farther advanced in our technology. I'm not trying to say what caused this. I don't know, and I don't really care. But we are dabbling in a lot of new things that did not exist a year ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. We're doing all kinds of new things, and you have no idea what the outcome of these new experiments, new technologies, new viruses, new medicines. You have no idea what the long-term effects or what we might do as a society going forward. I mean, what if all of a sudden there was another world war? And I obviously hope that never happens, but what if it did? Is your business, are you prepared? Forget your business for a second, or your job or whatever. Are you prepared for what could happen if the world shuts down again? And luckily, I've always saved money. I've always put a priority on that, and I've always tried to learn and adapt. That is one of my greatest strong suits, in my humble opinion, is that I've always tried to be versatile. I've always tried to look at a situation and go, okay, well, this is what we got now. What do I do to survive this? What do I do to conquer? I don't just want to survive a situation. I want to destroy it. I want to master it. I want to be the greatest that got through it. And that doesn't mean I am, obviously. It just means that that's the goal. That's what I strive to. I strive to be the best that I can possibly be at being prepared. And if I'm not prepared, how can I be at least versatile, or how can I adapt to a situation? And that's extremely important with everything. With everything you do. It is extremely important that you make yourself adaptable. Like that, to me, that is one of the greatest superpowers in the history of humankind, is being able to take and to be honest with you, it just hit me as I was saying it. All human beings are built this way. This is what the human body is built like. It is amazing. Any kind of stress or trauma that you put your body through, it starts to learn how to adapt. And this is a phenomenal... Think about this. When you go to the gym and you work out, you put stress onto the current situation of your muscles. Your muscles are whatever they are. And then when you work out, you are putting stress on them. And what does your body do? It adapts by breaking down that old fiber and it rebuilds a stronger one. Your body is built to adapt to stress. So you should walk into every situation thinking, okay, it is what it is. It can be stressful. It can be problematic, but I know that my body is built to handle this. Not just your body, your brain, your mentality, your mindset is built to adapt if you walk into the situation prepared to adapt. Meaning, it doesn't mean that you need to be prepared for something that you can't possibly expect. It means always be willing to think when these things happen. When something dramatic happens in your life, don't think, oh man, poor me. This is because everybody's going to feel like that. Everybody's going to be thinking like this sucks, right? But what you can do is the sooner you come up with a game plan about, okay, here's the situation. What do I do? What can I do that's going to conquer this? What can I do that's going to make me excel in this time, in this event, in this situation that I'm in? What can I do? That kind of mindset has always been more helpful than seeing something bad happen and then go, oh, well, I guess this is it. I guess this is how we end it. You know, I look at it I compare it with sports. You know, when your team, like Tom Brady is one of the greatest ever, well, if not the best ever, at looking at a situation saying, okay, we're down, we're losing, but we ain't out. It's not over until the clock hits 0. So let's keep fighting and fighting and fighting, and let's see what happens. And 9 times out of 10, he wins them. And it's because of that mindset. Michael Jordan never took a shot that he was like, well, no, there's no chance I'm going to make this, but I might as well shoot it anyway. He doesn't, no champion, no successful person goes into a situation thinking like that. You think of, how can I succeed? Let me think of a game plan. Let me visualize this in my head about how I'm going to win this, and then let me try to go out there and execute it. That's what winners do. And it's not easy to think like that when the stress is all around you. It's easy to think about what's happening bad to you. It's easy to think about, man, poor me. How is this going to destroy me? How is this going to bother me? How is this, how is this going to ruin my life? It's easy to think like that. It's not easy to think about how you're going to conquer a situation. But it is necessary if you want to succeed. And during this time, I've gotten myself into so many different other avenues because I'm trying to visualize going forward, not only things that I actually like or that I'm interested in, but I try to think of, where is the world heading? What do I want out of my life? What do I want to do in my life? Like with the time that I have, a hobby of mine has always been wanting to learn more so I can be more, so I can be wiser, so I can understand more. And that doesn't mean that I'm all intelligent or all wise or anything like that. I'm obviously always going to be a work in progress. But the point is, that's what I strive for. That's what I've always wanted. I've always wanted to know as much as physically possible about things that I actually care about. Like if you said, oh, have you ever tried to learn about basket weaving or quilting? Nope, not once. I'm a complete idiot at that. But I have zero interest in learning that. And that's not to say that doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't. I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just saying that for me personally, that's not a big interest of mine. I always try to learn. Like, here's a good example. When I was a kid growing up, I love sports right now, especially football. When I was a kid growing up, never cared at all about sports other than golf, because that's what my dad liked. My dad watched golf. He liked golfing. I used to golf with my dad. So I used to like golf, and I knew a lot about players in the 80s and 90s. And then Tiger Woods came along, and then it all of a sudden became cool. And then a lot of other people started to get interested in it. But me, I didn't really get interested in like basketball and baseball and football and all that until I was like in my later teen years, like I'd say 16, 17, 18. And the only reason I did is because my friends were always talking about it. And I just was like, man, I'm an idiot here. I don't know anything that's going on. I have no idea. But what I always loved is absorbing knowledge. When these guys would talk, I would listen so I could try to understand not only what they're saying, but why it's exciting to talk about it. Why do they like it so much? What is the big appeal with these sports? And then the more I would hear, the more I would like it, the more I learned, and the more I wanted to learn. And then I found myself taking time out of my own life to try to study stats, numbers, analytics, and like why you would put this type of defense in front of this type of offense, or why you would use this type of offense to attack this kind of a defense, and things like that. And in 2 years previous to that, I didn't care at all. But that is I've always been like that. Whenever I get interested in something, I want to learn everything about it. And the biggest thing I want to learn about it is its origin. And it's always been huge to me. And it's funny because I never realized until I was like in my 30s why I care so much about origins. I've always been like that. When I was a kid, the Star Wars movies, right? The 4, 5, and 6 are the first ones that came out. Episodes 4, 5, and 6. The original, Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, Yoda, all that. Those are the originals. But if you think about it, those are actually episodes 4, 5, and 6. It wasn't until almost 20 to 30 years later that episode 1, 2, and 3, which were actually prequels to the 4, 5, and 6, those ones then came out. I was so excited to see the origin of Darth Vader. Way more excited than I was about the episodes 4, 5, and 6. Now, the 1, 2, and 3 episodes 1, 2, and 3 weren't nearly as good as episodes 4, 5, and 6. However, and I guess that's subjective. I shouldn't say that. To me, it wasn't. But that moment of seeing, like, episode 3, I think it was Revenge of the Sith, is where you get to witness Darth Vader going from Anakin to becoming that evil Darth Vader. And that moment, that movie was phenomenal to me because I've always wanted to see what is the thing that made him go from a sweetheart little kid to such an evil, like, not emperor, I guess technically wasn't the emperor, but what made him such an evil powerhouse from being such a sweetheart little kid? Those kinds of things are fascinating to me. I like knowing what caused this about everything. Not just Star Wars, but as a kid, I always liked knowing the ending and then going back and watching how it takes place. And everyone thought I was weird for that. Like, all my friends are like, well, I don't want to tell you the movie. And I'm like, no, go ahead. I'll watch it. Don't worry. Please just go ahead and ruin the ending for me. And to me, it wasn't ruining anything because I like knowing the awesome outcome and then being like, man, what led to this? How did this happen? What got here? The story to me is always so much more exciting than the end. The journey is so much more exciting to see play out than the destination. And the end is the destination. The end of the movie, the end of the goal, the end of your run is your destination. And the journey is the part that excites me the most. You know, this idea of like starting the podcast and getting into it and everything and doing it every day with, you know, I'm no Joe Rogan. I don't have millions of followers. I don't have millions of people listening. This is exciting. These are the exciting times for me, though. And maybe when I do have millions or whatever, then it'll be exciting, maybe. But to me, the come up, the journey, the start, what made me start? Why did I start? Why am I doing what I'm doing? How am I doing what I'm doing? And where does this end up? For me, that is exciting to me. I'm not asking everyone else to be excited for me, but I'm just saying, like, to me, the idea of watching somebody get to a point where they're like, all right, this is what I want to start doing. What is the vision? What's the goal? And let's see that journey play out and see where that goal, if you get that goal, you know? It's always been exciting to me. That's all I can say, really. But during all this pandemic, I started thinking about what got us here. What got to this pandemic? And I'm not trying to say like who started it, who caused it or whatever. I'm just saying like, how did we get to this point where everyone is walking into stores wearing masks? If you're not wearing, it's so weird how much 1 year can do to people. You walk into a store now, if you're not wearing a mask, people look at you like you're a psychopath and you're trying to kill the whole store. They look at you like you're a terrorist walking in there with a gun or something. It's insane. And listen, I wear my mask, so please don't at me and DM me and all that. Don't jump into the DMs and start ripping me for not wearing. I wear my mask all the time, guys. I don't wear it while I drive because I think psychopaths do that, but that's just me. No, I'm kidding, guys. But the point is, man, it's like, how did we get here and what got us here and how can you prepare for not only if this happens again, but when it happens again? I'm not saying it's going to be a pandemic. I'm not going to say it's COVID. I'm not going to say, I have no idea what it is, but what COVID showed is that at any time, things can shut down. It can be a wrap. And are you prepared for that? Are you financially? Are you mentally? Are you physically? Are you prepared for another shutdown of any kind? If there's a world war and people, what if the apocalypse happened? Or what if the Walking Dead happened? What if the end of the world is a type of a pandemic where half the world is dying off? And all of a sudden you don't have jobs to go to every single day because half the world is unpopulated now, or half the population's gone. Things are not going to run like normal. You're not going to have a normal run to Starbucks and then Target and all that when there's bombs going off everywhere and people are in a mass panic. And it's what would you do? Like, how do you prepare your life for all your situations? One quick little story about this, because I think this is helpful. When I was younger, I used to say, my dad would convince me to save money, save. And every time I would save a good amount of money, something would happen where I would have to spend a lot of that money. And I remember this happened over and over and over and over. And finally I said to my dad, I'm like, what's the point of even saving this money? Every time I save some money and I get anything, something happens and I have to spend it. And that was the wrong attitude. That was the wrong way to think. I was young. I was stupid. And I said that to him. And my dad said, look, you're not saving money so nothing will happen to you. You're saving money so that when something happens to you, you're prepared for it. That's what you're doing. And when you look at your money as a kid, especially when you're saving your money and you're not going and buying Jordans or video games or something with it, you're bummed. You're like, man, all my friends have all this stuff. I can afford it. Why not just go do it? But that's not the goal. The goal is not to go buy Jordans and video games. The goal should be to be prepared. So if something happened, look, you can always save a bunch of money and then spend a tiny bit of it. But the point is, don't save a bunch of money and then spend a bunch of money. That's not the goal. You're hurting yourself when you do stuff like that. So during all this time, and when I seen there was shutdown, and I was like, man, this can really alter my job. It can really alter my life. What can I do to financially prepare myself in different avenues? And I started looking at different things, and all of a sudden I remember hearing about the sports card market and how that was booming, and it was something that I loved as a kid. And I was like, well, let me look into this because I like it. I mean, I always loved the idea of collecting different trading cards, sports cards, things like that. I always liked that, but it was just like, once it became more of just spending money for a collection and not actually using it to make money, I was like, well, I better not do this. It's just a waste of a lot of money for me. So I stopped doing it when I was a kid, or when it became non-profitable, if you will. So fast forward to now there's a bunch of money into it. The hype around the industry is huge. So during when the pandemic first hit, I started buying up some sports cards because there was a lot lower attention worldwide. And I started thinking about, okay, where are the people? Like why would value go up? What causes value to go up in the stock market or in the sports cards or anything? What causes prices to rise? And the number one factor, there's many factors, by the way, but the number one factor that I've noticed that always without fail seems to raise prices is attention. When there is no attention on a card or a stock, it's cheap. You buy then when there's nobody talking about it. Nobody thinks about it. Nobody cares. Then when an event, like for instance, if you would have bought GameStop a year ago, and then all of a sudden there was some attention on GameStop a month ago, you would have made a killing. I did not do this because I didn't think about GameStop. It wasn't on my radar. So I missed out on a good opportunity there. But there was a lot of people that did not miss out on that. A lot of people made a killing on that. A lot of people, it changed their lives completely. Now, I don't think that it's smart to just hope for something like that. I think you should do your research. I think you should really study what you're looking to get or what you're trying to achieve. Are you just doing it just to try to make a quick buck, or are you actually interested in this? Because I don't think you should put money into things that you're not at least interested in, because if you're not interested in it, you're not going to check on it very often. And if you don't check on it very often, you can get caught. You can get a lot of your money taken. So I only encourage putting money into things that you actually care to think about or check into or pay attention to. It's important. Because at least then you're always monitoring it, and you are more likely to capitalize on sales or whatever, or trading, things like that. You're more likely to capitalize on good opportunities, good moments, if you're checking it all the time. But if you don't care about it at all, like for instance, Bitcoin and Ethereum and things like that, blockchain, cryptocurrency, I've heard about these things for years, never cared. Now I do. because it started to affect my sports card world. See, what happened with my sports cards, I started buying a bunch. I started actually flipping. I started making some money, and it has been awesome. It has been incredible. But I pay attention to it all the time. I look at it all the time. I check on prices all the time. I actually like this industry, so it's not a chore for me. It's not work for me. But it is something that has helped me make money. So I've had to put that a little bit more of a priority than my podcast, because the podcast makes me some money, but it doesn't make me enough to pay my bills or anything. And during that pandemic, when I wasn't working for like 4 straight months, I did get unemployment, but I wasn't making, I was like, man, is there any other way, since I have this time off, is there any other way I can spend my time and energy to perhaps capitalize on something else? The sports cards were the first step, the easiest step for me, because I like it. But I can't make other people like it. I can't make other people interested in it. So if you're not interested in it, I don't encourage you to get involved in it. But maybe you do like cryptocurrency. Maybe you like blockchain and Bitcoin. Maybe you've been studying that. That's another avenue. What got me to that point, now I'm going to give you the little tie-in here, the reason why I went to cryptocurrency from the sports cards, which I still do the sports cards, and I love it. I do it all the time. Just sold a card yesterday. Made a good amount of money on that one myself. And I'm not trying to say it to brag. I'm just saying it is a profitable thing for me. I really enjoy it. I like the idea of what I'm doing. So it's interesting to me. It doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like it's something that I need to focus on and to try to get some things done. But it doesn't feel like, oh man, I got to go do this again. I feel it's one of those things where instead of feeling like, oh man, I have to do this, I feel like, oh man, I get to do this. This is awesome. But what happened is NBA Top Shot all of a sudden happened. And I didn't catch it day one when everyone else was, because the idea to me was, if you're going to do digital sports cards or digital trading cards, moments, things like that, why would anyone pay for this? Because you can just go on YouTube and watch these same moments. So I didn't understand why anyone would care about this, or why anyone would spend any amount of money. Problem was it was super cheap when it first started, and a bunch of people bought stuff, and then prices started to skyrocket. People were making a killing in that, and I totally missed out on that because of my lack of knowledge of Bitcoin and blockchain and all that stuff, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. My lack of knowledge on all that really harmed me when it came to the NBA Top Shot. I'm into it now, and I think that it's only going to grow. I think it's only going to get bigger because people are just now starting to really hear about it. And with attention comes price hikes. But that transition, because NBA Top Shot uses blockchain to make sure that things are secure, make sure that things are not copyable, if you will, it makes it to where these moments really do become valuable to people. Like, there's a lot of NBA players that are talking about being on Top Shot, talking about wanting certain moments to be on Top Shot, which just feeds into it more, because then you got people that watch the NBA that are like, oh, what's Top Shot? They know nothing about trading cards. They know nothing about blockchain. All they know is that they love the NBA, and this player is talking about Top Shot, and this guy loves this player. So now he's going to go invest some time and energy into Top Shot. Maybe he'll buy a couple of moments, and then he's going to tell his friends about it because he's now excited about it. And now his friends want to go out and buy it. So this is how things spread. This is the origin story of Top Shot, and that's what this is all about, is where is attention? Where's the attention headed? You can really make, and I always have a hard time trying to encourage people to try to do things with their money. I don't ever want to do that. You do with what you want with your money. I just encourage you to think and read and educate yourself before you do anything with your money. Nobody should just be blindly buying something because they think it's going to be good. It's going to be good, because otherwise you're more than likely going to lose. You're more than likely going to fail. If you don't understand the system or the game that you're playing, you shouldn't go you should never bet on a game you don't even know the rules to. That's a good way of putting it, actually. You should never bet on a game that you're playing that you have no idea what the rules are to this game. Like if you went in to go play, if you tried to hustle somebody at pool, but they had their own rules that they were playing by, and they told you, hey, we're going to play by my rules, and you're like, okay, but you didn't ask what those rules were, you're going to lose. And rightfully so. But I don't know, man. I just like the NBA Top Shot made the blockchain thing. It made it to where you can't copy these moments. It makes it where you know who's trading what, how much value it was, how much it's selling for. There's a real stock market feel to it. And then I started getting into this other one that's now called Dibs. This one hasn't even really come out fully yet. It's not actively on the market. You can download the app, but you really can't get in and start using stuff unless you get an invite. I think it's going to be available within a month or so of this recording. But I got an invite to that because of the other avenues that I've gotten myself into. But this actually goes back to preparation. See, since I got into the sports card market and I started dabbling in that, I started finding sports card shows like on YouTube, one of which is Sports Card Investors. Shout out Jeff Wilson. If you ever hear this, you've changed everything. You've changed a lot for me in my life, dude. And I appreciate you. You're awesome. But he's been extremely helpful. And I ask anyone, please check out his show if you're going to get into sports card investing and stuff, because that guy has been phenomenal. He has been almost dead on accurate about everything I've ever heard him say. So he's extremely knowledgeable. He's extremely good at what he does. He's super likable. He's super nice. He's just a good dude, and he knows his stuff. But anyway, he had a special referral code to help get into this Dibs. This is DIBBS. There's an app for it, and a website. And he talked about it last week, about this new stock market feel of trading cards, but only they've fractionalized cards like the stock market, meaning you can buy fractions of a piece of art. You can buy fractions of a card, and that way you still have ownership, meaning if the value of that card goes up, you don't the value of each of your individual stocks go up. And I described it like this. Say it's like a screen. It's like an image on a screen, right? Well, that image all has pixels. Instead of buying, say this image is worth 30 grand. This sports card, this digital sports card is worth 30 grand. If you don't spend 30 grand, you don't own 100% of those pixels on that card. If you own 1% of the pixels, like let's say you buy, let's say it's 1,000 pixels and you've bought 100 pixels. Well, you have 10% ownership of that image. And so if the overall image goes up from say 1,000, let's say it's 1,000 pixels and it's $1,000 to make the math easy, right? So it's $1 per pixel. So you've bought $100 worth of those pixels. You bought 100 pixels. You bought 10% of this overall image. Well, now if those pixels, the price of that overall image goes from 1,000 to 2,000, you still have 100 of those pixels, but now instead of being only worth $100, it's now worth $200. So you've spent $100 on 100 pixels. They're now valued at $2 per pixel instead of $1 per pixel. So now each of those 100 pixels you own are now $200. So you've just doubled your money. And it's like the stock market. If you own stocks in a company, you own a percentage, you own a tiny little fraction of that company. When the overall value of the stock goes up, your overall value of your stocks goes up. It's a beautiful thing. So this is, like I said, this is in the infant stages. This hasn't even fully come to fruition yet, but it's happening and people seem to be interested in it. And I'm trying to think of in the future, where is this attention going? NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, all of these things have contributed to making this type of technology necessary and possible. And I think it's incredible. It's changing the game for the future. Now, do I know that this is going to be like this in 10 years? Absolutely not. So I'm paying a close eye on it. But this is why I've started to dabble in more and more things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and things like that, because it started with the sports cards I like, and then it became the NFT, the non-fungible token version of sports cards on the digital. I just highly encourage educating yourself on the whole idea of Bitcoin. I'm not saying you should go buy some. I'm not saying you should be involved in any of that. If you don't want to, don't. I didn't for a long time. I kind of regret it now, but you live and you learn. I don't live in regret. I look at it as, hey, things didn't happen back then, but they're happening now. I could also wait another 5 years and then things are really going to be expensive. And then it's going to be very difficult to play this game too. So I try not to dwell on what I've missed. I just try to learn where am I at right today and how do I conquer today? And that's what I'm trying to do here. And I'm trying to help you do that too. But like I said, never just blindly jump into anything. Don't just go buy Bitcoin because of what I'm saying. Don't go buy Bitcoin because of what anybody's saying. Educate yourself. know what you're talking about, know what you're purchasing, know how it works, know what the end game is, know what you're actually trying to accomplish before you just go out and spend money hoping that it's going to turn into something profitable for you, because a lot of people are going to lose miserably. The stock market, the Ethereum, the blockchain, all this stuff, it goes up, down, up, down. The prices of everything constantly fluctuates. It's never just only going up. So just be careful is all I'm saying. But because of all trying to learn and understand all of these things, this is what has caused me to get farther and farther behind on this podcast. This is why I'm making such a long episode. You guys know that normally my last few episodes have been like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 at the most. This one's you're already talking about 45 minutes almost. And we haven't even, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to try to do a part 2 of this soon, just to help people. But basically, let me wrap it up with this. The reason I've been so far behind on the podcast is because I'm trying to branch out into all these different avenues on top of working way more hours at work than normal, and also trying to take care of my kid when I'm at home, when my wife works and I'm running around with my daughter, and my wife is pregnant, so I also have to get things done around my house. There's just so much going on. So guys, I'm not trying to be slacking on the podcast. I'm not giving up on it. I'm not quitting. I don't want people to think that, oh man, he's only putting out one a month. This sucks. Because I agree, it does suck. I'd love to be putting out at least one every single week. But I'm just trying to be transparent and honest with you guys about why I'm putting the podcasting a little bit on the back burner. I'm trying to educate myself to learn more so that way I can then share it with you guys. I don't want to be giving people bad information or false information. So just bear with me, guys. I'm trying to do the best I can. You guys know that I love you. I never want to stop doing this. If you ever want to reach out to me on any platform, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, I'm not on Facebook a whole lot, but TikTok I'm on, LinkedIn I'm on. If you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me on almost every platform at It's Adam Rich, all lowercase, all one word, ITS Adam Rich. You can find me on pretty much every Twitter, Instagram, all of it is It's Adam Rich. LinkedIn, you can just find me at Adam Rich. You'll see founder and host of Really Rich Podcast. So anyway, guys, please reach out to me. DM me if you have any questions about anything. I love talking to you guys. You guys are everything. So thank you so much for everything that you guys do, and thank you for being patient with me, and I'll talk to you as soon as I possibly can, guys. I love you, and peace! I'm out of here.